Yes, great. So our final presenter today is Ryan Burson. Ryan is a demographer, statistician in the population division for the Census Bureau, and he will be discussing the population estimates program. Ryan has been with the Bureau since 2008, and prior to that, he served as the state demographer in Missouri. Welcome, Ryan. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Let me see if I can share my PowerPoint presentation with you. Is that showing up well for everyone?
Yes, it looks great. Thanks, Ryan.
Oh, thank you so much. And good afternoon, everyone. Well, it's sort of coming at the end of the day, and I'm sure a lot of things have, you've learned a lot of things, and maybe your brains are becoming full, but I'd like to share some things with you. And I know there's a lot of interest in our estimates, and so I'd like to share some things with you. I'm a demographer, of course, in the population division of the Census Bureau. I'm very happy to be with you, talk about our population and housing unit estimates. I would say that I've known Sue Capella for many, many years, and I know she's probably with my colleagues now in some estimates and projections meetings. I'd like to give a little bit of an overview of what I'm going to talk about today. I'll just give some of the basics of the population estimates program. And in addition, I'll talk about our estimates subject content, what kinds of information that we disseminate, and also the geographic component of that. I'll talk about methods and accuracy, the methods we use to make and how accurate the estimates are against the census, our release schedule. I'll give you some pointers and actually run through some things on accessing the estimates. It's not always fully intuitive, we probably know. I'll finish up by talking about some more resources that you can consult in my area if you need to learn more, ask questions. And certainly at the end of this presentation, if you have any questions, please just feel free to jump in. I want to ask if my volume is good for you guys.
Yes, it's very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Some of the basics, our population estimates program, we disseminate the official measures of population housing units between the censuses. We do it because we're mandated by Title 13 to do it by federal law. Our estimates, they inform over $675 billion worth of federal government spending each year. And recently, our estimates really came into, we hope, good use. They were used to distribute we deliver to the Department of Treasury, used to distribute over $200 billion to states and cities for the 2020 CARES Act and the 2021 American Rescue Plan. Our estimates support the American Community Survey and other federal surveys. They're used as controls and denominators. For example, the National Center for Health Statistics uses our population in rates, fertility, and mortality, and so on. And as you know, academic and businesses use our data for a number of purposes, and our numbers are used in the public and private sectors for planning and so forth. Our most current estimates are for July 1, 2020. Our estimates extend back to that we have disseminated on our web pages to 1900. We release annually estimates for over 80,000 areas in the United States and Puerto Rico. What do we mean when we use the term estimates? Well, again, we say, when we say estimates, we're talking about the official measures of population and housing units between the decennial censuses. Our estimates, I'll get into a little more detail, but they're based primarily on the previous decennial census. They're produced using primarily administrative records data. on components of change, such as information about births, deaths, and migration. The estimates are always, we're always looking backward because we need to gather up those administrative data and put them in our models and turn the cranks and actually create the estimates so they're for prior dates. Although we do disseminate some short-term projections. Usually our estimates are as of July 1 of any given year, although we do monthly national estimates as of the first of the month. Okay, a little more terminology. I think it's important to distinguish what we mean by these three types of estimates. The first type, excuse me, is called post-census estimates. We make these estimates every year and they're based on the most recent census. They extend to the vintage year. For example, our latest estimates are as of July 1, 2020, so we call them our vintage 2020 estimates. The post-census vintage estimate series is updated each year, and we update them to reflect new data inputs, corrections, and data. Also, very important for geography changes, especially for small areas. The most current vintage supersedes previous post-census estimates. And so those, when a new vintage comes out, they supersede and are the preferred series to use. Now, a second type of estimates is very important. We call them inter-census estimates, and they're kind of like what they sound. We revise the post-census estimates at the end of the decade to create a smooth time series from one decennial census to the next. These inter-census estimates that we make become the preferred series when they come out, and they're the preferred estimates that we like people to use for that decade. A third type of estimates is very important. It's very important in times like right now. We call them evaluation estimates. At the end of the decade, we produce estimates extending to April 1 without knowledge of the census. And when the results from the decennial census become known, we compare those estimates as of April 1 with the census counts as of April 1 to assess the accuracy of the estimates. And we'll talk a little bit more about some recent estimates that have come out and some evaluations that we're able to do against the 2020 census. I'll show you examples of each type of these estimates today. Just an overview of our content. I put this slide up because it's really important. We were working with some folks over in the American Community Survey, and of course they have estimates as well, and they're referred to as estimates. And they have a much larger array of estimates that they come out at, just a much greater volume of data. Even though some of our estimates are used as controls, we don't produce any social estimates, nor do we do economic estimates. The ones that we do are total population, and then population by age and sex and race and Hispanic origin. We also show the components of change, births, deaths, and migration, net migration. And that includes domestic and international net migration. We also publish group quarters estimates. And then there's something that we only do for the United States, but we publish estimates, and they're monthly, for different population universes, including the usual resident pop, also the resident population plus armed forces overseas, civilian non-institutionalized, and household population. Housing wise, just simply just the estimates for housing unit totals, no other housing characteristics. Geography. This is the hierarchical structure of that displays the the areas for which we make the estimates, including the nation, regions, and divisions, and states, and we include Puerto Rico in that. Under states in Puerto Rico Commonwealth, we have counties and municipios. We do estimates for metropolitan and micropolitan statistical areas, and beneath that, in the geographic hierarchy, we make estimates for incorporated places and minor civil divisions. In all, we make estimates for over 40,000 communities, but really for 80,000 geographic areas, because we show the estimates for areas that are unincorporated parts of counties and townships. This table brings those two things together, the content and the estimates by type and geography. And this is a quick summary for you so you can get a quick look of what we put out. And we do the total resident population for all the geographies that I mentioned. And we do the components of change, that is births, deaths, and net migration, we disseminate for all areas except for incorporated places and minor civil divisions. We use the word places to refer to incorporated places and minor civil divisions. Sometimes we say sub-county areas, and sometimes you'll see later on we just say cities and towns, but that's what we mean by places. We don't do components for the municipios in Puerto Rico, but we do them for the Commonwealth. Now, very detailed characteristics: age, sex, race, Hispanic origin. We release those for the United States and counties. And for Puerto Rico, so we do age, sex, race, and Hispanic origin for all of those areas. But for Puerto Rico, only by age and sex, no Hispanic or race detail. Last, for the nation, the monthly estimates that we do for the 5 universes, which is a very interesting term that we use for those. Housing units, US, states, and counties. I would be remiss if I didn't share with you that the estimates, we have a very robust methodology and methodologies that's been in place for some time, and methodologies that have been improved over the years. The estimates methods that we use they vary by geography. For the nation and the state and county populations, we use what we call a cohort component method. The population estimate at any given time starts with a population base. It may be the last decennial census or the previous point in the time series, for example, the previous year. Births are added and deaths are subtracted. Independent estimates of net migration are added in there, both international and domestic, to get the population estimate at the end of that period. Birth and death records are supplied each year by the National Center for Health Statistics and by our partners in the Federal State Cooperative for Population Estimates. Net international migration is estimated using data from the American Community Survey, the Puerto Rico Community Survey, and the Defense Manpower Data Center. Net domestic migration is factored in by incorporating data from the Internal Revenue Service. Also, for the elderly population data from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services and the Social Security Administration, the American Community Survey, some survey data for that, and from our estimates cooperative partners. For sub-county populations, we use what we call a distributive housing unit method, where county population is distributed to sub-county areas based on updated estimates of housing units. We multiply housing occupancy rates and persons per household rates times updated estimates of the housing units for sub-county areas to produce uncontrolled population estimates. We then control the sub-county estimates so that they sum to the county household population estimates produced with the cohort component method that I just mentioned. And to produce the final sub-county population estimates, we add the controlled housing household population estimates to our estimates of the group quarters population. And by group quarters, I'm talking about people that live in certain, institutional settings like correctional institutions and so forth, and other non-institutional type settings like dormitories. So those are added together to get the final total population estimates for those areas. Input data for housing unit estimates come from the Census Bureau's building permits survey, the survey of construction, manufactured home survey, and from our estimates cooperative partners. Let's talk about the availability of the estimates and talk about the most recent estimates, our vintage 2020 estimates. Many of you may know that in the past, we did not come out this early with our vintage 2020 estimate series, largely to stay out of the way of the release of the decennial census data and to avoid confusion between our estimates, those vintage 2020 evaluation estimates, and the actual census results. Well, because of the delay of the census releasing the census results this time round, a number of our colleagues in the data center and in our estimates cooperative thought it would be helpful if we went ahead and started to release our 2020 estimates. Last December, we came out with our total population and voting age population for the nation and states. Just very recently, we released an array of different estimates, a total population and components of change for the nation, states, and counties, also for Puerto Rico Commonwealth, and the totals for municipios, and also the totals and components for metropolitan and micropolitan areas. At that time, earlier this month, we also released a special file of population estimates by single year of age and sex for the nation, a file that the National Center for Health Statistics uses. Coming up really soon, we're going to be releasing the total population estimate for the cities and towns in the nation, some 20,000 areas. And in addition, we'll release total housing units for the nation, states, and counties. In June, a very big release, a lot of data are going to be coming out at that time. We'll do our estimates for the nation and states and counties, population by age, sex, race, and Hispanic origin. And then we'll do the age and sex estimates for Puerto Rico Commonwealth and municipios. We PEP caters to a variety of data users. The estimates program caters to a lot of different data users with unique needs. So we have a variety of data access tools. The PEP web page is the primary. That is the primary way to access all of our PEP estimate products. Recently, and I think Kenny talked about that perhaps, we were able to make our first release of vintage 2019 estimates on data.census.gov. At this time, the only PEP estimates that we have on data.census.gov are vintage 2019 totals, total resident population estimates for all geographic areas. We're currently working with the Census Bureau Center for Enterprise Dissemination to post other estimates product on data.census.gov, and we're preparing to launch a full release of our estimates data post Census 2020, starting in December of 2021. Estimates are also on Quick Facts, and I'm sure a number of you use Quick Facts. It's a quick and easy way to access facts about the people in business and even for geography. Statistics are provided for states, counties, and cities and towns with populations, I believe, of 5,000 or more. And then another very useful avenue for accessing our population estimates is the Application Programming Interface, or API. It lets developers create custom apps to reach new users and makes key demographic information and our population housing statistics more accessible to a number of the developers. Our PEP estimates on the API extend back to 1990. This is the PEP main web page. Here you can access all of our estimates products, including a large array of current and historical estimates, method statements, publications, and media reports. It contains formatted tables and detailed downloadable data sets, which can be read into Excel or some other application. We will look at examples of how to access tables and data sets, but first let's look at some of the features that are a little bit hidden, and I want to point them out to you because it might not be totally intuitive to you on how to access those features on our web page. There are several features in the highlighted area that provide background information about the estimates. Let's start with the About This section link. I would ask for a show of hands here, but I won't do that. But I'm not sure how many people actually would think or click on that or wonder what's under there. Well, I'll show you. There are several resources in this section. There's the frequently asked questions areas that answer a lot of basic questions about the estimates. The glossary is very helpful to give definitions for all of our estimates terms. You know, when you see a term that says base population or natural increase or median age, it's defined there. The schedule you can look at. It's available on the main page as well, but the schedule is available here on the releases. And the related sites link, if we went under that, we would find the State Data Center program and all of you guys and how to contact you in the various states, Pennsylvania and elsewhere. Under the related sites link there, we also point to our population projections area. And we point to our international programs area where it's possible to get estimates of the world, a lot of characteristics, population characteristics for the world and countries around the world. The FSCPE link provides information about our partners in the federal state cooperative program for population estimates. Our colleagues there in the FSCPE really, we work hand in hand to gather inputs and to review the estimates that we disseminate. Then there's the challenge program, information about how localities can challenge the estimates that come out for their areas. And last, information about the special census inclusion program, how to get a special census conducted in your areas. The challenge program, the special census programs were not in effect. They stopped being in effect last year sometime. They're not in effect right now. Let's return to the other estimate support features in this highlighted area. I think this is very important, and maybe you use these things, but I think it's very helpful to use the guidance for data users link to help to choose the appropriate estimates for your needs. The geographies and guidance for geographies user links provide definitions for geographic reference codes. I understand that there are a lot of folks that are working with geography and need codes when they're working with their GIS applications. So we provide codes, geographic codes for our estimates areas to match them up with mapping products. There's a geographic change notes page in here that provides documentation for boundary changes to counties and county subdivisions and places. It is very helpful if an area disincorporates or its boundaries change. It really helps to explain, especially at the very local level, about fluctuations in population. Library link. It points to estimates and projections publications, data visualizations, and working papers about the estimates. Last year, we added a series of published historical P25 current population reports to this area, over 1,000 PDF documents in all. And these documents about estimates go back to 1947. A very useful way to go and maybe to find something. Of course, you can go into the library and find some of these things, but these are available at your fingertips. News, of course, points to the latest news information, tip sheets, press releases, and so on. The technical documentation link includes more areas for method statements, file layouts, and research subjects, and I'll talk more about that next. So keep your eye on that technical documentation piece. It is a very important gateway into some of our more recent estimates. I want to now turn to our latest estimates, our vintage 2020 evaluation estimates, and show you how to access them. At the end of each decade, when the decennial census information is released, PEP has the opportunity to evaluate its estimates against the census. We will use our estimates methods existing throughout the decade to create April 1, 2020 estimates without knowledge of the 2020 census, and then compare the estimates against the census results. Next year, we will release a number of special estimates evaluation reports showing these comparisons. And mind you, this is not something that we routinely did at the end of the decade, not this early. So now, in the meantime, we are releasing the vintage 2020 evaluation estimates that span the period April 1, 2010 to July 1, 2020. To reach the vintage 2020 estimates, you must first click on the technical documentation link on the main web page, then the research page, and then last the evaluation estimates page. So to get here, you could use the URL shown at the top, but again, it's through technical documentation, research, evaluation estimates. This is not the way that you would access our other post-censal and inter-censal estimates. Only our evaluation estimates are accessed this way. All of the other estimates can be accessed from our main web page, and I'll show examples of that. This is our 2020 page, and I want to look now at the metropolitan. I'm going to select the link for metropolitan and micropolitan statistical area totals, 2010 to 2020. If I click there, it leads to this web page. Notice that there are two data sets available on this page, one for metropolitan and micropolitan statistical areas, and the other for combined statistical areas. I'm going to choose the link to the metro and micro areas data set. It's a common separated value, or CSV data set, but I want to call your attention to this data set's companion file layout. Very important. Whenever you see a data set like this, it will have a file layout. Data sets are typically much more detailed than tables. but do not have as much formatting to make them as presentable as tables. The companion file aid is needed as a guide to the data in the data set. I'm going to select it. This is the top portion of the file layout for that Metro Micro file. It gives the data set name and source information. It lists each variable name in the data set, and importantly, its description. Geographic variable information is given, along with other variables in the data set, including, in this case, we have the resident population estimates, but if you went down the list, there are change data and then births and deaths and net migration. In this particular data set, there are over 100 variables. I'm going to select the link to the Metro Micro data set now. This is the data set which opens up conveniently the CSV file in an Excel workbook. It has nearly 3,000 observations, so I can only show a part of it here. I'm highlighting the first few population variables, starting with the Census 2010 population, moving over, and we reach population as for 2013, but extends over across with all of the 100 variables. And I've highlighted the first few population variables for the Philadelphia, Camden, Wilmington metropolitan area and its parts. So you get the various county and county equivalents in there, as well as the metro divisions. Can you see why the file layout is an essential companion to the data set? How accurate are the estimates? As I mentioned before, the estimates that we're making now at the end of the decade without knowledge of the 2020 census, using our existing post-census estimates methodologies, we're making the estimates and we're comparing them against the April 1, 2010, well, 2020 census results. And I've summarized in this table some of these basic evaluation metrics that we have. We have a wide array of metrics that we use to help us to understand the differences and evaluate our methodological decisions, and then also, to draw conclusions about the quality of the estimates and look at ways that we can improve the estimates. Here, I've shown some estimates specifically for Pennsylvania, but I wanted to mention and focus on the fact that the larger the area, typically the smaller the differences between the estimate and the census. Now we're looking at averages of the absolute percent difference for each state and for the nation and counties and cities and towns. For 2010, if we look at the absolute value of those, the average of the absolute values for those things, the nation, we were within 0.1%, the average for states 1%. We can see in 2010, Pennsylvania was actually underestimated. So the way we compute these, we take the census minus the estimate, divide by the estimate, and multiply it by 100 to get a percent difference. As it turns out, for Pennsylvania, in 2010, the state's population was underestimated. The census came in higher. Moving across, we can see that as we move across, the smaller the area, the larger the absolute percent differences. Just moving down to 2020, as you know, we just recently got the national results. And so the national percent difference is 0.6%. And once again, Pennsylvania's population was underestimated by 1.6%. If we took the average difference, some states are higher, some states are lower. But if we took the average, the state, the difference is, the average absolute percent difference is 1.2%. So again, Pennsylvania underestimated, and by a larger amount than last decade. We'll learn more later in late summer, early fall, when the public law file comes out with the redistricting counts, the data for counties and cities and towns. We just looked at the evaluation estimates. I want to show you how to access post-census and inter-census estimates, and I want to start with the post-census estimates. Let's look at a table from the 2019 estimates. I'm back at the main PEP web page. I could select data on this page and then the tables option on the next page that comes up. Another quick way is just simply to click on this tables icon here on the main page to go directly to the tables. As it turns out, all tables and data sets are presented on the web page for each geographic area type. So when you choose a table or a data set, all of the other available tables or data sets are available on that page for that geographic area. This is the top part of the page that I just clicked on there. Estimates for other geographies are listed below. Notice that there are tabs referring to the years for which estimates are available. I've selected 2019. There's a drop down over on the right next to more, which we'll explore a little bit later in the presentation. I'll come back to that, but I'm going to select city and town population totals here. By the way, vintage 2019 estimates are now available, but at the end of this month, on May 27, we'll have our vintage 2020 estimates for cities and towns. This is the top portion of that page that I clicked on. I want to call your attention to the methodology statement. All of our estimates that we disseminate will be accompanied by method statements for the particular vintage that you're looking at. Method statements change. Sometimes we issue release notes that highlight the differences from year to year. But always look for this methodology statement if you're wanting to know specifically, and they're very detailed. I've highlighted below the top of this page, there are 3 summary tables for places that are 50,000 or more, summarized by change, either over the decade or over the last year. Scrolling down on the page here, and once again, we're looking at post-census estimates for 2019. You see a matrix of tables with the 2010 to 2019 incorporated place estimates. There's a link for all of them, all 19,500 or so of them in the United States, there for United States. And then I am going to select Pennsylvania here, and let's look at the result for Pennsylvania. This is the Excel table with estimates for the first several incorporated places in Pennsylvania. As you well know, there are over 1,000 of these in all, so it's a large table, but the estimates are starting with the April 1, 2010 census, and then the base, which incorporates geographic changes and changes in the census due to the CAT question resolution program. The estimates for this particular table go from 2010 to 2019. When the other ones come out, we'll go to July 1 of 2020 at the end of this month. Now I want to turn to our inter-census estimates, which were described earlier as that smooth time series. I would say maybe smooth is a little bit overstating, but let's say smoother time series relative to the post-census estimate series. These are made at the end of the decade. We take results, we take our post-census estimate series. Then we take the beginning census and the ending census for that decade, and we impose the post-census estimates to agree to the beginning and ending point to get the intercensus estimate series. We have the intercensus estimates available on the PEP webpage for the nation, states, and counties for a variety of demographic subjects going back to 1900. Now, once intercensus estimates are released, they become the preferred estimates for the decade, and they supersede all of the post-census estimates that we've been making, those vintage estimates, throughout the decade. Suppose you want to make access intercensus estimates table, an intercensus estimates table for states for the years in the 2000s. Now this is a tricky thing, and it trips some people up. But if you're wanting the intercensus series for the 2000s, first start by selecting any year in that interval. Here I'm going to select 2008. I could choose 2007 or 2009 or even 2010, and I would get the result of the intercensus holdings that we have. You can select any year in that interval. When I do, that brings us to the list of all the intercensus 2000 to 2010 estimates tables that are available on the website. I'm going to scroll down here and select state intercensus tables. And I do that, good. I'm going to go back. Did you hear this part? I accidentally touched that, I think. I was talking about intercensus estimates and selecting the year. And when you select any year, you can get the entire decade's worth of intercensus estimates. In this case, I chose the state intercensus estimates tables from 2000 to 2010. And then I chose the age-sex table for Pennsylvania here. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you're doing great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we were just looking at how to get the intercensus tables. And we want to use the intercensus if we want a number for the period 2000 to 2010. So I selected Pennsylvania, and this was the table, and it just shows the 5-year age groups, selected ages under 18, and so on, school age 65 over, and so on. Here, both for both sexes, males, females, April 1, 2000 to July 1, 2010. These are the intercensus estimates. PEP has considerable estimates holdings which are not on the main pages of our website. These estimates are typically post-census estimates from previous vintages. All content from earlier vintages has been migrated to the FTP area of our webpage for you to access. To get to the FTP area, just simply go to the bottom of the page, which is shown here under the dashed line of any table or data set. You can browse folders, as you can see here, for data sets, tables, file layouts, and methodology statements. If you go into the folders and start looking, they're organized by decade and vintage. It's a fairly organized method. However, if you do go into these folders to find the particular estimate you're looking for, you may not easily find the documentation that you need there or the estimate that you need there. Fortunately, at the bottom, we made a searchable index that you can use to help you find what you're looking for. The index includes document names, content descriptions, and directory paths to files. There are entries in the searchable index for approximately 20,000, I'll say that again, 20,000 tables and 7,000 data sets in the index. I'll scroll down to where I was. I was getting towards the end, and I apologize for that. I'll just go down to where I was there. I was talking about the searchable index to data that the estimates that are not necessarily on the main web page. And I wanted to talk about, you go to the bottom if you're at a particular page of a particular type of estimates on a table, any table or any data set. You can choose that searchable index there at the bottom. And that searchable index has 20,000 entries for tables and about 7,000 data sets. It looks like this, and it gives the file name and the file description, and importantly paths to the files themselves and the path to the methodology. And over to the right, see the decade and year and then geography. If you go to those, and I've highlighted them here and blown them up a little bit, but there's a filter, so you can choose any particular year or particular geography. So that's very handy. You can sort and filter in the searchable index to find a data set. And I just wanted to give an example. If you were, for example, looking for an estimate, the vintage 2018 estimate for, just as an example, I pulled of Hastingstown, Florida. Well, it disincorporated in 2018, and there is no 2019 and of course not a vintage 2020 estimate yet, or there will not be for Hastings because it disincorporated. You can access the estimate for Hastings by just simply choosing the year 2018 and then selecting sub-county and filtering for that. And when you do, it will return a list of tables. And this is the result of the filter search, and I've highlighted the particular place where you can get the estimates for Hastings. I've highlighted. As it turns out, we've captured all of the estimates tables that we published on American Fact Finder. That was the previous primary dissemination platform for the Census Bureau. And we've captured all of those estimates and are providing all of those files with their documentation here through the searchable index, and you can access those there. Now, I'll just move quickly here. If you're wanting to learn more about the estimates, I provided these last two slides. My branch is listed first. We can answer most questions that you might have. I've given phone numbers, and of course, here, our branch, you can email us, and we can especially answer questions about special tabs and website and that sort of thing, release dates. I want you to know about the population estimates branch. They can answer detailed methodological questions, the ins and outs of the estimates by age, sex, race, and Hispanic origin, and the military and group orders estimates and the components of change. That's our estimates branch. Then our local government estimates and migration processing branch, or we call it LGIM. They can answer questions you might have about sub-county population estimates, housing units, domestic migration, the challenge and special census programs. We have a NIM branch, Net International Migration. There's the number to reach them if you want to know more about net international migration, which is increasingly important. Last, the evaluation, our PEEP, Population Estimates, Analysis and Projections branch. They can answer questions about evaluation estimates, population projections, and demographic analysis. I know that we may not have a lot of time, but I'm willing to stay as long as you wish. and try to answer any questions that you have. Thank you for letting me be with you today.
Thank you, Ryan, for that presentation. It was very informative. I don't have any any questions in the queue right now, but we'll give people a minute or two to see if they have any they want to add, if you don't mind.
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay. And while we do that, I just want to take a moment to thank everybody who joined us today. We hope you all found the presentations informative. And I just wanted to add that the presentation slides and the recordings will be available on the conference website next week. And if you have any questions or comments about today's conference, please contact us. We'll be happy to talk with you. Not seeing anything else in the queue, Ryan. So I think we are good. I want to thank you once again for your presentation. Thank everybody for joining us, and I hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you.